Let's talk about some general principles to keep in mind with the acquisition stage. Number one, your acquisition strategy should align with your growth stage. So if you're an earlier stage company, you should experiment with a few channels to find that one channel that works really, really well, because you don't know what works yet, and you should be trying to find product market fit. So basically just putting some traffic into your funnel to see how people use your product and if they like it and if you can improve it. And as you scale, you're going to want to double down on that primary channel that works best and consider investing in others as that channel becomes more saturated. The second is that distribution follows the power law. So if you're not familiar with the power law, the classic example is income distribution in the United States. You have a small number of billionaires taking up the vast majority of the wealth, and then you have this long tail of lower income earners. So similarly, the bulk of your customers will come from 1 to 2 acquisition channels. To quote Brian Balfour, most high growth companies get 70% or more of their acquisition from one channel during their early life. So to look at an example of this, we can look at Dropbox. So in September 2008, Dropbox was trying to drive acquisition through multiple channels, AdWords, etc., a classic mistake, and they had 100,000 users. But when they decided to focus on viral growth exclusively, because that seemed to be what was working really well for them, by January 2010, 15 months later, most of their acquisition had come from the viral channel, and they had 4 million users. So you can really see the power of focusing on what works and leaning into that power law. Thirdly, you need to be mindful of product channel fit. The idea here is that your product and the channels you pursue can't be thought of in isolation. Your product will actually have inherent advantages with certain channels. So to take the example of Zynga, the creator of Farmville, if you remember that game, they had an inherent advantage with Facebook because their game was designed in such a way that if I wanted to advance in the game as a player, I had to share and interact with other people on Facebook. And that's what really helped them blow up. But you also have to keep in mind that you have influence over your product, but not over the channel. So Facebook can do whatever they want, Google can do whatever they want, and you won't be able to do anything about it. And in the case of Farmville, Facebook actually decided to de-emphasize social gaming, and Zynga's growth took a big hit because of that. So try and think about what advantages your product might have with certain channels. Next, you should be mindful of channel model fit. So just like how your product has a big influence on what channels will work well for you, your business model has a big influence on that as well. The more revenue you generate per customer, the more you can spend acquiring each one. So if we think about what kind of business would have a really low revenue per customer, that would be a business that generates revenue through just ads that people see on their website. So that would be something like Facebook. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for a business like that to acquire customers really expensively through ads. On the other hand, if you sell enterprise software, every customer is worth a ton. And so you're willing to pay salespeople, very expensive salespeople, to make those sales because it's going to be worth it for you. Number 5, think about the full funnel. What you can do with acquisition actually depends a lot on the rest of your funnel. And that's because acquisition channels cost a lot less if you can convert that traffic better. That way you're not just wasting the traffic that you just paid for. You'll also get an even better return if customers retain longer, spend more, and invite their friends. That's retention, revenue, and referral. We'll talk about this more in a future lecture. Finally, which channels work best will change over time. Your business will change, so that will affect your product channel fit and your channel model fit. Platforms will emerge and platforms will die. Does anybody remember MySpace? At one time, that might have been a great place to advertise. And finally, channels will become more competitive. So Andrew Chen, a very smart marketer, likes to refer to this as the law of shitty click-throughs, and how channel performance will naturally degrade over time. So if you look at early banner ads from 1994, you see that there's click-through rates as high as 78%, but since ads are so commonplace on the web now, we see much, much lower click-through rates. Okay, so with these 6 principles in mind, how do I get more customers? Well, there's 2 ways. You can optimize your existing channels, and you can unlock new channels. And in the lectures that follow, we're going to be talking about both of those.